The early morning mist clung to the riverbank, curling around the tall grasses like a gentle veil. Samir, the park ranger, moved quietly along the trail, alert to subtle disturbances in the wildlife. The usual chorus of birds and insects seemed muted today, replaced by a tense stillness that prickled the skin. A faint, almost imperceptible moan drifted across the reeds. Samir froze, his senses sharpening. Something in that sound was different, fragile, urgent, weighted with worry. He moved slowly, careful not to break the quiet, following the source through the dew-soaked grasses. Near the water's edge lay a female lion. Her golden fur glistened with dew, and she crouched low, ears swiveling constantly, her head dipping as if listening to sounds only she could hear. Her eyes, wide and watery, were fixed on a tiny shape near the river, a shadow barely visible among the reeds. A small cub struggled in the mud, its legs awkward and weak. The mother's soft, trembling cry carried across the riverbank. Samir crouched behind a bush, giving them space. The lion's tremor ran through her entire body, her muscles taut with tension. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and river water, mixed with the faint musk of the lioness, a scent that spoke of worry and urgency. The cub whimpered softly, and the mother responded with gentle nudges and low, quivering moans. Each movement was careful, deliberate, balancing instinct with fear for her offspring. Samir whispered under his breath, careful not to alarm them, "It's okay? I'm here. We'll help." Minutes passed in tense observation. Each time the mother lion approached the cub, she inched forward and then retreated, ears flicking, tail twitching. The cub made a faint attempt to rise but fell back into the mud, and a soft groan escaped from the mother's throat. Samir felt the delicate weight of the moment, life hanging in balance, the raw vulnerability of the wild laid bare. Finally, the mother crouched lower, nudging the cub forward with measured care. The cub lifted its head, wobbling slightly, and took a tentative step. Relief flashed in the mother's eyes, a quiet release after the long stretch of tension. The river whispered softly nearby, reeds swayed with a gentle breeze, and a distant bird call punctuated the silence. The morning seemed to hold its breath, allowing the delicate moment to unfold. Samir remained still, observing the intimate scene of instinct, care, and quiet determination. The mother's soft cries gradually slowed, transitioning to a gentle hum of reassurance. The cub's small body responded, attempting another step, leaning against the mother for guidance. In that stretch of misty riverbank, life balanced delicately, tender, fragile, and filled with an unspoken trust. The mother lion's eyes remained alert, scanning the surroundings, yet there was a subtle softening in her posture, a silent acknowledgement of Samir's respectful presence. The cub managed a few more shaky steps, nudged gently by the mother. Samir exhaled quietly, feeling the fragile pulse of hope and resilience in the wild. Around them, the river flowed in a steady rhythm, reeds rustled softly, and the scent of damp earth carried the promise of survival. For now, the bond between mother and child held strong, witnessed by a silent human who understood the rare intimacy of such moments. The sun climbed slowly, cutting through the morning mist with streaks of gold that danced across the riverbank. The lioness remained crouched near the cub, her ears flicking at every subtle sound. Samir knew that any sudden movement could startle her. He moved deliberately, each step measured and slow, his presence calm yet deliberate. The cub trembled weakly, its small body coated in mud and dew. Samir knelt a few meters away, keeping his voice low. "Just a little closer, we'll get you cleaned up," he whispered, though the words were more reassurance for himself than for the animals. The lioness' golden eyes tracked his every movement, tense but unyielding. Her tail flicked occasionally, a silent signal of caution, yet there was no aggression. Carefully, Samir extended a hand toward the cub, palm open, showing no threat. The mother lowered her body slightly, her eyes never leaving the ranger. There was a quiet negotiation in that gaze, an unspoken question: can this human be trusted? Each moment stretched as if time itself waited for the answer. Finally, the cub allowed itself to be lifted from the mud. Its tiny claws dug briefly into Samir's sleeve, then relaxed, too weak to resist. The lioness pressed close, nudging her cub gently, her low rumble a mixture of relief and lingering concern. Samir held the cub steadily, feeling the rapid heartbeat beneath its damp fur. The river rippled softly, carrying the scent of water and wet earth. Insects hummed lazily through the golden light. Samir moved carefully, cleaning the cub's fur with gentle swabs and soft murmurs, ensuring he did not alarm the mother. Each motion was deliberate, a quiet choreography of patience and respect. The cub began to respond, shaking off some of the mud and wobbling on its small legs. The mother's tail twitched, her ears relaxed slightly, and she pressed a careful nudge against the cub's back. Samir spoke in whispers again. "Almost there, steady." The cub squeaked faintly, the sound barely audible, yet enough to ease the tension along the riverbank. 4 hours, they remained in this delicate dance. Samir adjusted the cub's position when necessary, offered gentle support, and stepped back whenever the lioness approached. The mother observed with intense focus, her body language precise and controlled. Every movement, every soft nudge, spoke volumes of trust slowly forming in the quiet moments. Even as the afternoon deepened, golden light reflecting on the water, there was no rush. The cub's small body grew steadier, its tiny steps more confident, guided by the mother's reassuring presence. Samir remained vigilant but unobtrusive, witnessing the fragile bond that could exist when instinct, patience, and respect converged. Finally, the lioness relaxed fully, settling her body near the cub as it explored the soft earth. The cub took a few small steps toward Samir, then paused, glancing at its mother. The air was filled with the quiet rhythm of life, birds chirping softly, reeds swaying, water lapping at the riverbank. The moment was delicate and profound, a reminder that even in the wild, trust could be earned through patience, care, and understanding. Samir exhaled slowly, realizing that in this quiet stretch of the riverbank, a rare understanding had taken root. The lioness had allowed him presence without fear, the cub had regained strength, and the fragile thread of connection between human and wild creature held firm. The afternoon sun had climbed high, warming the riverbank and turning the mist into faint golden threads above the earth. The cub had grown steadier on its small legs, though each movement still wobbled with uncertainty. Samir stayed low, careful to remain at a respectful distance while observing every subtle interaction between mother and cub. The lioness remained vigilant, her ears swiveling at the faintest sound, her body coiled with quiet alertness. She moved close to the cub when it stumbled, nudging it gently with a soft rumble, then stepping back to watch. Each step the cub took was a delicate negotiation between instinct, guidance, and newfound courage. Samir crouched beside the cub, speaking in low, soothing tones. "Take your time, steady now." The cub paused, shaking slightly, then pressed forward once more. Its small claws dug into the soft soil, leaving faint impressions as the lioness's tail brushed gently against its side. It was a rhythm of reassurance, a silent lesson of care and patience. The scent of the river and the damp earth mingled with the lioness's warm musk, grounding Samir in the immediacy of the wild. Insects buzzed lazily through the thickening heat, and the gentle rush of the river provided a constant, calming backdrop. Every sound, every movement, felt amplified in the stillness of the afternoon. The cub began exploring cautiously, swaying its head from side to side, sniffing at fallen reeds and puddles of water. The mother remained close, her golden eyes tracking each motion. When the cub ventured too near the river's edge, she nudged it back, a soft warning and gentle guidance combined. Samir adjusted his own posture, making no sudden gestures, allowing the lioness to remain the center of care. Hours passed in quiet rhythm. The cub grew steadier, lifting its head higher, stepping with more confidence. Samir offered minimal support, just the occasional hand to stabilize or brush off clinging mud. The mother's tension slowly eased as she observed the cub regain strength, yet she remained poised, a sentinel over her child. At one point, the cub stumbled, tripping over a hidden root. The mother let out a soft, almost inaudible groan, leaning over it to guide it upright. Samir felt a lump in his throat. The simplicity of that action, mother supporting child, was profound, yet it was also a reminder of how fragile life could be in the wild. The golden light lengthened as afternoon gave way to early evening. The cub had found its footing, taking small, cautious steps along the riverbank, testing its balance. The lioness pressed close, occasionally licking its fur in quiet reassurance, her low rumble now calmer, filled with relief. Samir leaned back slightly, observing the subtle, unspoken communication between the two. The river whispered over smooth stones, reeds swayed with the gentle wind, and distant birds called as the day began its slow descent. For Samir, witnessing the silent recovery, the bond between mother and cub, and the tentative trust extended to him, was a reminder that patience and compassion could create profound connections, even across the boundary between human and wild. As the sun dipped lower, casting the riverbank in warm, golden hues, Samir understood that this day would remain etched in memory. The cub was stronger, the mother calmer, and the fragile trust between human and wild creature had begun to grow in the quiet spaces of shared care. Evening began to settle across the riverbank, the sun dipping low and painting the grasses with a soft golden haze. The cub explored its surroundings more confidently now, stepping lightly on the moist earth, occasionally pausing to sniff at a stray reed or a small pool of water. Samir remained low, a respectful distance from the mother, watching every subtle movement with quiet attention. The lioness lay down, her golden eyes tracking the ranger, her ears flicking at every small sound. She had shifted from rigid vigilance to cautious awareness. Samir understood that her trust was fragile, but it was there, slowly emerging. Each gesture, each glance, was a silent negotiation of boundaries and understanding. The cub stumbled briefly, and the lioness nudged it gently with her muzzle, letting out a soft rumble of reassurance. Samir murmured quietly, "Careful, that's it." The words were small, unobtrusive, yet seemed to blend into the riverbank's calm rhythm. Time stretched in quiet observation. The mother's tail twitched occasionally, a subtle reminder of her constant attention, yet she remained relaxed, allowing the cub to venture towards Samir at its own pace. The tiny steps, the hesitant pawing at the soft soil, were a quiet testament to resilience. The air carried the scent of wet earth, the faint musk of the lioness, and the gentle warmth of the fading sun. Insects hummed softly as shadows grew longer, and the distant call of a bird punctuated the silence. Samir moved with care, adjusting his position only when necessary, mindful that any sudden movement could undo the delicate trust he had begun to share with the mother. The cub approached him briefly, hesitating at the edge of reach. Samir froze, letting the lioness guide its steps. A subtle nudge from the mother was enough, and the cub stepped closer, brushing briefly against Samir's hand. The mother observed, her eyes soft yet alert, a low purr vibrating in her throat. She was allowing him presence without fear. Minutes passed, each one waited with quiet significance. The mother and cub remained connected, their communication wordless but profound. The lioness's body language spoke volumes, relaxed shoulders, tail resting lightly on the ground, ears tilting in calm acknowledgement. Samir could feel the rhythm of their lives, intertwined yet separate, the human presence accepted without intrusion. As the sun sank lower, casting a warm glow over the riverbank, the cub leaned against its mother, exploring the soft grass and water's edge with confidence. The lioness pressed a gentle muzzle to its back, a soft, grounding gesture. Samir sat back, letting the moment unfold in its natural pace. The river flowed steadily nearby, carrying the quiet hum of life across the landscape. Even in the fading light, there was no rush. No dramatic gestures, no sudden tension, only the simple power of trust, patience, and observation. The mother had accepted the human witness, the cub had grown stronger, and the balance between wild instinct and gentle intervention held firm. The golden shadows lengthened, draping the riverbank in warmth. Samir exhaled slowly, appreciating the rare stillness of this moment. There was a silent understanding now, subtle yet profound, binding human, mother, and cub in a quiet triangle of trust. This was the rhythm of the wild at its most intimate, a fragile, enduring connection forged in patience, care, and respect. The late afternoon sun cast long, golden shadows across the riverbank, bathing the tall grasses in a warm, gentle light. The cub, now steady on its legs, followed closely behind its mother, who moved with a quiet assurance, her eyes scanning the terrain. Samir remained low, careful not to intrude, watching the subtle interactions between mother and child. The lioness nudged the cub gently, encouraging it to step forward along the soft soil. Her tail brushed against its side, a calming gesture that seemed to communicate more than words ever could. The cub hesitated, then moved confidently, testing its strength with each careful step. Samir exhaled slowly, a quiet witness to the culmination of hours of patience, trust, and care. Around them, the river whispered softly, flowing steadily over smooth stones, carrying the scent of wet earth and reeds. The distant call of birds punctuated the warm, golden air, blending with the faint hum of insects. The savanna seemed to stretch endlessly, a vast, quiet landscape holding space for the small but profound reunion taking place. Samir observed the lioness as she guided the cub toward the open grasslands beyond the riverbank. Her movements were deliberate yet gentle, a balance of instinct and maternal reassurance. The cub's steps grew surer, its small head held higher, ears flicking at the sounds of the wild, tail swaying slightly in tentative confidence. For a brief moment, the lioness paused, turning her head toward Samir. Her golden eyes met his, calm yet aware, a subtle acknowledgement of his presence and the care he had shown. She offered no aggression, no fear, only a quiet, wordless acceptance. Samir nodded almost imperceptibly, his heart full of a deep, unspoken gratitude for the fragile trust that had formed between them. The cub glanced back, then forward, and continued alongside its mother. Step by step, they moved into the taller grasses, their figures becoming silhouettes against the warm glow of the setting sun. Each motion was unhurried, natural, a poetic rhythm of life resuming in the wild. The wind carried the scents of earth, grass, and distant trees, mingling with the faint musk of the lioness. Samir breathed deeply, absorbing the stillness, the delicate balance of strength, vulnerability, and trust. In that quiet stretch of the savannah, life continued as it always had, but a rare connection had been forged, one that would linger in memory long after the sun had disappeared beyond the horizon. Finally, the mother and cub disappeared into the tall grasses, their shapes merging with the landscape. Samir remained still, watching until only the whisper of the river and the hum of evening life remained. There was no dramatic farewell, no triumphant gesture, only a quiet, enduring understanding of the fragile, beautiful thread connecting human and wild creature. The sun dipped fully, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Samir turned back along the riverbank, carrying the memory of trust, patience, and care. The cub would grow strong under its mother's guidance, and he would leave with the quiet certainty that, sometimes, even in the wild, compassion could create bonds that endure far beyond the briefest moments of presence. The river flowed on, steady and eternal, whispering stories of survival, trust, and quiet miracles, leaving Samir with a calm, unshakable sense of wonder at the fragile, intimate rhythms of life in the wild.